December 18th, 2022, the most watched sporting event in human history. Argentina versus France, the World Cup final. 1.5 billion people simultaneously watching the same 90 minutes of football. Kylian Mbappe scoring a hat-trick in a World Cup final. Lionel Messi, at 35 years old, in the final chapter of his career, finally lifting the one trophy that had escaped him his entire life. Extra time, penalty shootout. The greatest game ever played. You watched it, or you wish you had. And somewhere, in a quiet office building in Zurich, Switzerland, 12 men counted their money. $7 billion was collected. That is what FIFA, the organization that ran that tournament, collected from Qatar 2022. And not a single dollar of income tax was paid on that money. Zero. Because FIFA is officially, legally registered as a non-profit charity. Now here's what nobody told you. Those 94,000 seats in Lusail Stadium? The workers who built that stadium, who built all 8 stadiums, who built the roads, the hotels, the entire infrastructure of a country that spent $220 billion hosting this event. 6,500 of them died. That number comes from The Guardian's independent investigation. 6,500 human beings, all while FIFA banked its massive haul from that tournament. FIFA has paid the families of those workers exactly $0 in compensation. Not a fund, not a gesture, zero. This is the story of FIFA, the most powerful sports organization ever created, the most brilliant business model in the history of entertainment, and one of the most consequential governance failures of the 21st century. By the end of this video, you will understand every dark secret, every financial trick, every political maneuver, and why billions of people still watch anyway. Because that last part, that's the most important part of all. Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA, founded in Paris, 1904. 7 men, 7 European countries. One idea: standardize the rules of a game that was spreading across the world faster than anyone could control. That was 120 years ago. Today, FIFA has 211 member nations, more than the United Nations, which has 193. Think about that for 1 second. There are countries that can't agree on basic diplomatic recognition, but they all agree to play football under FIFA's rules. That is not governance. That is a cultural monopoly with legal infrastructure attached to it. Here is what FIFA actually owns. It owns the FIFA World Cup trademark, the most valuable forward brand in sports. It owns the tournament format, the draw procedures, the hosting rights, the broadcast rights, the sponsorship categories. It owns the logo that 5 billion people recognize instantly. Here is what FIFA does not own: the stadiums, the clubs, the players, the domestic leagues, any of the actual infrastructure of football itself. FIFA owns the permission layer, the right to stage the pinnacle event, and it charges every nation on earth to participate in it. This is platform economics at its most extreme. Amazon doesn't manufacture the products on its marketplace. Apple doesn't make the apps on the App Store. FIFA doesn't play football. It just owns the most important stage football is ever played on, and charges the world for a ticket. And here is the detail that should immediately change how you see this entire organization. FIFA's market capitalization, if it were a publicly traded company, would sit between $40 and $75 billion. Higher than Adidas, higher than Nike's annual revenue, higher than most national governments' annual budgets. And it pays, in most jurisdictions, 0 tax. And it pays, in most jurisdictions, 0 tax. That is the empire you're looking at. To understand FIFA's power, you first have to understand why football itself is unlike any other product in human history. Every other mass sport has a barrier to entry. Ice hockey needs an ice rink. Golf needs a manicured course. American football needs expensive protective gear, a structured team, and a very specific field. Tennis needs courts. Football needs a ball, any ball. A bundle of tied-up rags will do. 2 rocks for goalposts. Any flat surface. That is it. That is the entire barrier to entry. This means football scales perfectly across every income level on Earth. The billionaire's child in Monaco and the child in a Nairobi slum play the same game, with the same rules, for the same reason, because it is the most purely enjoyable thing a human body can do with a spherical object. In business, the term for this is total addressable market. FIFA's TAM is every human being on Earth who has ever kicked anything. That's not a market, that's civilization. Now layer on 3 psychological pillars that make football uniquely addictive. First, nationalism. The World Cup pits nations against each other in a proxy conflict. Genuine stakes, 0 actual casualties. When Argentina plays France, it isn't a game. It is identity. It is history. It is pride. The emotion is real, even though the consequence is not. This is why a stadium with 94,000 people can be simultaneously the happiest and most heartbroken place on Earth in the same 90 minutes. Second, engineered scarcity. Club football happens every single week. 38 league games a season, cup competitions, European nights. Fans consume it constantly. But the World Cup? Every 4 years. Only. That interval isn't logistical. It's psychological. 4 years is long enough that an entire childhood can pass between tournaments. Long enough that a player's entire career might contain only 3 or 4 of them. Long enough that when it arrives, it feels like an event that must not be missed. Scarcity creates premium pricing. FIFA industrialized scarcity into a religion. Third, and this is the one the neuroscience backs up, football is a low-scoring game by design, and that is its greatest commercial asset. In basketball, a team down by 20 points with 2 minutes left has functionally lost. Viewers leave. The tension is gone. In football, a team losing by 1 goal is always exactly 1 second away from equalizing. A single deflection, a goalkeeper's momentary hesitation, a set piece. That sustained uncertainty, 90 minutes of it, produces a dopamine profile unlike any other sport. The emotional investment compounds with every passing minute. Viewers cannot turn away because the game is never over until it is. FIFA doesn't sell football. Football sells itself. FIFA just owns the lock on the door. The current 2023-2026 financial cycle. FIFA's target, $13 billion, not million. Billion, a 72% jump from the previous cycle. Where does it come from? Let's go line by line, because each line tells you something about how this machine thinks. Television and broadcasting, $4.26 billion projected for the cycle. The golden goose. Every broadcaster on Earth treats a World Cup like oxygen. They will pay whatever it costs, because the alternative is losing their audience to whoever does pay. Marketing and sponsorships, $2.84 billion. Tiered like a luxury brand. FIFA partners, Coca-Cola, Adidas, Visa, pay year-round for the association. World Cup sponsors below that. Regional supporters below that. Every tier carefully priced. Ticketing and hospitality, $3 billion for 2026 alone. Dallas, Los Angeles, New York. The most lucrative corporate hospitality market on the planet. VIP suites, premium experiences, prices the NFL would recognize. Licensing, $400 million. Video games, merchandise, digital rights, which, as you'll hear shortly, used to be much higher before FIFA made the most expensive mistake in sports business history. Total for the cycle, $13 billion, contracted 93% in advance. The money is banked before the tournament kicks off. And the cost structure? FIFA does not build a single stadium, does not pay a single player, does not operate a single domestic league. The host nation absorbs every capital expenditure. FIFA absorbs every revenue dollar. This is the mechanism that financial analysts call capex arbitrage. Qatar spent $220 billion building the infrastructure of an entire World Cup. FIFA walked in, took the broadcast and ticketing revenue, completely tax-free under the legal agreements FIFA forces every host nation to sign, and left Qatar with stadiums that are now largely empty. Privatize the profits, socialize the costs. It is the most efficient revenue extraction model in the history of organized sport. The host country pays for the party. FIFA takes the door money and pays 0 tax on the way out. FIFA doesn't own clubs, but it governs an ecosystem worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And you need to understand this ecosystem to understand what FIFA is actually protecting. The top 20 clubs on Earth generated a combined $12.4 billion in revenue in the 2024-25 season, 12.4 billion euros from 20 clubs in 1 year. The 5 most valuable: Real Madrid, $6.75 billion valuation, over $1.2 billion in annual revenue. The first football club in history to break €1 billion in a single season. Manchester United, $6.6 billion, a commercial machine that prints money despite a decade of failure, extracted hundreds of millions while fans protested in the streets. Barcelona, $565 billion, a club that nearly collapsed under catastrophic debt. Manchester City, $5.3 billion, the poster child for nation-state ownership. Inter Miami CF, a franchise that was worth almost nothing until Lionel Messi walked through the door. These are not athletes. They are economic multipliers in human form. Cristiano Ronaldo joining Juventus in 2018 made the club's stock price jump 30% in 48 hours. Lamine Yamal, Barcelona, 18 years old, $200 million market value. Let that land. Erling Haaland, $200 million. Kylian Mbappe, pace, skill, commercial pull that transcends the sport. One detail that almost nobody knows about the most famous trophy in sports. Beautiful on the outside. The original World Cup trophy, the Jules Rimet Trophy, was stolen in Brazil in 1983, never recovered. The current trophy, solid 18-karat gold, worth $20 million but hollow inside. Beautiful on the outside, hollow within. Some say it's the most accurate metaphor for the organization that made it. The geopolitical player, how FIFA operates like a government. Movement 3, the corruption. May 27, 2015, 6 a.m., Zurich, Switzerland. The FIFA World Congress is gathering. Hundreds of officials from 211 nations. Handshakes, fine suits, the annual ritual of football's governing body. At 6 a.m., Swiss law enforcement enter the Baur au Lac Hotel, one of the most expensive hotels in Europe, and arrest 7 senior FIFA officials in their rooms, including 2 FIFA vice presidents, 2 vice presidents of the organization that runs global football. Arrested in their pajamas, the U.S. Department of Justice had been building this case for years, working with the FBI, IRS criminal investigation, and prosecutors across multiple countries. What they found was not the work of a few corrupt individuals. It was a racketeering enterprise that had been operating continuously for 24 years, since 1991, $150 million in bribes and kickbacks, flowing through shell companies, Swiss bank accounts, wire transfers from New York to the Caribbean to South America to Europe. Hard cut to black. The crimes: wire fraud, money laundering, racketeering. The beneficiaries: senior FIFA officials across CONMEBOL, South America's Football Confederation, and CONCACAF, North and Central Americas. The payments were tied to broadcast rights for major South American tournaments, World Cup hosting bids, specifically Russia 2018, specifically Qatar 2022, media and marketing contracts worth billions. December 2015, a second wave of indictments, 16 more officials. FIFA president Sepp Blatter, who had run the organization since 1998, resigned in June 2015. He later received an 8-year ban from football, then 6 years. Then it became a legal battle that continues. UEFA president Michel Platini banned over a $2 million disloyal payment from Blatter. A payment with no contract, no formal agreement, paid years after the supposed work was done. Jack Warner, a FIFA vice president from Trinidad, fled charges. Jeffrey Webb arrested. Chuck Blazer, the American official who had collected millions in undisclosed income, became an FBI informant and revealed that corruption at the highest levels had been simply how FIFA operated. for decades, 31 guilty pleas, $201 million in assets seized and eventually returned to FIFA. The organization paid back the money that was stolen from it, to itself, to develop football. No single dollar went to the countries whose broadcast deals were rigged. No dollar to the fans who paid inflated ticket prices. No dollar to the players whose leagues were compromised. Hard cut to black. In 2014, 1 year before the arrests, FIFA commissioned an independent investigation into the bidding processes for Russia 2018 and Qatar 2022. The investigator, Michael Garcia, American lawyer, former United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Garcia spent 2 years conducting hundreds of interviews, reviewing thousands of documents. He produced a 430-page report, detailed, sourced, damning. FIFA published a summary of it, a summary they wrote themselves. Garcia publicly stated, on the record, that FIFA's summary of his own report was inaccurate and misrepresented his findings. The full report was not released for years. It took legal pressure, public outrage, and the intervention of external bodies to get meaningful portions into the public domain. An organization asked to investigate itself produced a summary of the investigation that the investigator said was wrong, and the summary was the only thing most people ever saw. February 2016, Gianni Infantino elected FIFA president, reform candidate, new era of transparency, independent oversight, term limits, ethics committees with real teeth. The football world exhaled. Maybe this time would be different. Let us now examine, very carefully, what actually happened. 2017, Infantino successfully orchestrated the removal of Cornel Borbeli and Hans-Joachim Eckert, the two independent chairmen of FIFA's Ethics Committee. Both were in the middle of active investigations of FIFA executives. Both were removed. Both left. Neither was replaced with someone of equivalent independence. The compliance machine that remained. FIFA publishes annual disciplinary and ethics reports. Thousands of cases. It looks impressive. Read the cases. The vast majority are low-level player suspensions, minor federation infractions. The executive suite appears in these reports almost never. The organization investigates itself. The investigators answer to the organization. The organization find nothing serious about its leadership. May 27, 2025. A joint open letter declared publicly that FIFA is arguably more poorly governed today than it was 10 years ago. More poorly governed today than 10 years ago. 10 years after the reform, 10 years after the promises, the Trump Peace Prize, the moment that removed all doubt, December 2025. Infantino Awards, live on camera, the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize to Donald Trump. Aligned FIFA's Miami headquarters with Washington's political winds, and clearly calculated that the relationship was worth more than the principle. The fox is not just guarding the henhouse. The fox redesigned the henhouse to make guard duty more comfortable. The corruption didn't disappear. It evolved. From crude cash to legal patronage. From briefcases in hotel bars to grants and stipends. More sophisticated, more defensible, more permanent, hard cut to black. We need to stay in Qatar for a moment, because this is the most consequential decision FIFA has ever made, and it has still not been fully reckoned with. At the center of this power structure was the kafala system. Under kafala, a migrant worker's visa is tied to their employer. They cannot change jobs without employer permission. They cannot leave the country without employer permission. They cannot organize, cannot protest, cannot easily seek legal remedy. This system was the labor framework for the construction of the 2022 World Cup. Workers came from Nepal, India, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Ethiopia. They paid recruitment fees, often $1,000 to $3,000, just to get the job. Then they arrived and found wages lower than promised, accommodation without basic sanitation, working hours in 50 degrees Celsius heat. that no occupational safety standard on earth would permit. Official Qatari figures: approximately 40 deaths directly attributed to World Cup construction. The Guardian's independent investigation, cross-referencing mortality data from countries of origin, over 6,500 migrant worker fatalities in Qatar between 2010 and 2021. Not all attributable directly to construction, but thousands in occupational conditions that kill. FIFA revenue from Qatar 2022, $7 billion. FIFA compensation paid to families of deceased workers, $0. Human Rights Watch calculated a minimum ethical remedy, $440 million, equal to the tournament's prize money, proportionate, reasonable, symbolic. Human rights organizations, workers' advocacy groups, United Nations bodies, all requested it. Infantino, in the weeks before the tournament, held a press conference that became one of the most remarkable statements a sports executive has ever made in public. He said he felt like a migrant worker. He said he felt African because his ancestors had been discriminated against. He said he understood suffering because he had been bullied as a child with red hair. A billionaire sports executive at a podium telling the families of 6,500 dead workers, "I feel your pain." FIFA's human rights policy, adopted in 2017, pledged adequate measures and leverage with hosts to protect workers. No binding conditions were imposed before Qatar was awarded the bid. Post-award monitoring was described by independent investigators as performative. Stadium contractors were discovered to have hidden workers from FIFA inspection visits, triggering fire alarms to clear sites before FIFA representatives arrived, so inspectors would walk through empty, safe-looking construction zones. FIFA knew, or should have known. The inspection protocol was documented. The fire alarm technique was reported by investigators. The deaths were happening in real time. And the 2022 tournament proceeded on schedule because $7 billion was waiting at the end. Now we're going to talk about a mistake. A single boardroom decision that will cost FIFA more than $600 million over one cycle, and reveals exactly how this organization thinks about its own power. For 30 years, Electronic Arts made a video game called FIFA. 325 million copies sold. The most commercially successful sports video game franchise in history. Revenue from Ultimate Team alone, a card-collecting mode where players spend real money to build virtual squads, ran into billions per year. For the right to put 4 letters on the box, FIFA, EA paid FIFA approximately $150 million every year, $150 million for a name. Here's the detail that changes everything. EA negotiated its own separate licensing agreements directly with the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, the Bundesliga, UEFA and the Champions League, and FIFPro, the Global Players Union. That meant EA had the rights to every real club badge, every real stadium, every real player, face and name. FIFA contributed the word FIFA on the cover, and access to the World Cup tournament data for one mode of the game. That was it. In 2022, FIFA's leadership looked at EA's Ultimate Team revenues and drew the wrong conclusion. They assumed the $150 million they were getting was an undervaluation, that the FIFA brand was driving the game's success. They demanded $1 billion for the next 4-year cycle, a 150% increase, and they wanted to restrict EA's ability to expand into NFTs and esports. EA's executive team ran the analysis and found something FIFA had not. Gamers did not buy the game for the letters FIFA. They bought it to play as Erling Haaland wearing a Manchester City kit inside a fully rendered Etihad Stadium against a fully rendered Anfield. EA owned all of that. The club badges, the player likeness rights, the stadium licenses, the league competitions. FIFA owned the name on the box, and the World Cup mode that most players open once and never touched again. EA called their bluff, dropped the FIFA name, rebranded to EA Sports FC. EA Sports FC 24 launched. Sales were virtually identical to FIFA 24 would have been. The Ultimate Team ecosystem, intact. The multi-billion-dollar revenue stream, intact. 100,000 concurrent players on Steam on day one. FIFA's response? Infantino publicly promised FIFA would build a game to destroy EA. A rival game, coming soon. It has been years. Nothing credible exists. What does exist? Reports of discussions with Take-Two Interactive, the company behind NBA 2K, about launching FIFA 2K26. Take-Two makes acclaimed sports games. Take-Two is also notorious for the most aggressive, pay-to-win microtransaction systems in the industry. NBA 2K's My Team mode has been described by consumer advocacy groups as predatory gambling mechanics targeting teenagers. If FIFA launches an unpolished game, Built on a physics engine assembled in 2 years to compete with EA's 30 years of iteration, wrapped in aggressive monetization, the market will reject it in 48 hours. The reviews will be catastrophic. The brand damage will compound. FIFA brought a logo to a software fight. They are currently losing entirely. The lesson: brand equity is not product quality. FIFA assumed the name was the product. EA proved the product was everything underneath the name. Before threatening a partner, understand precisely what you contribute versus what they do. The answer is often more humbling than expected. This is the section most YouTube channels skip. Because accounting is boring, I am going to make it not boring in approximately 90 seconds. FIFA's 2025 annual report shows reserves of $2.7 billion. Healthy, strong, the organization looks financially solid. Here is what you need to look at instead. Contract liabilities. In 2024, $411 million in contract liabilities. In 2025, $5,219 billion in contract liabilities. From $411 million to $5.2 billion in 1 year. Why? Under IFRS 15 accounting standards, FIFA records broadcasting and sponsorship contracts as revenue the moment they are signed, not when the tournament is delivered. So FIFA has already booked the 2026 World Cup income. Cash banked, revenue recognized, reserves look great. But the $5.2 billion in contract liabilities is what FIFA owes to broadcasters and sponsors in actual tournament delivery. It is future obligation hidden inside present profit. If the 2026 World Cup were canceled tomorrow, FIFA would owe $5.2 billion it has already spent. Total liabilities plus reserves jumped 54% in a single year. FIFA is pre-selling its future to look healthy in the present. Classic event accounting smoke, legal, standard practice, and completely obscured from any headline coverage. And deep inside Note 30, 147 pages into the 2025 annual report, $287.4 million of restricted reserves were quietly ring-fenced specifically for club football. The timing, precisely when clubs and players were threatening legal action over the Club World Cup. Money allocated as a structural peace offering, written in language so technical that no journalist without an accounting background would flag it. For the 2026 World Cup, FIFA introduced a right-to-buy system. Here is how it works, and here is why it is one of the most cynical ticketing mechanisms ever engineered. Fans can purchase a right-to-final token. Price up to $999. This token does not give you a ticket to the World Cup final. It gives you the right to purchase a ticket if your national team makes it to the final. If your team does not make the final, the $999 token is worthless. You receive nothing. The system is governed by proprietary algorithms. Bots purchase tokens in bulk within minutes of release. FIFA simultaneously lifted secondary market price caps. Tickets with face values of $2,000 are being listed on resale platforms for $25,000. FIFA did not fail to prevent ticket scalping. FIFA engineered a system that participates in it. This is not an oversight. This is the deliberate monetization of FOMO, fear of missing out, at the expense of the fans whose passion is the entire reason this asset has any value. Video Assistant Referee, introduced in 2018 to eliminate, quote, clear and obvious errors. Here's the technical problem FIFA created by deploying VAR without solving its foundational contradiction. IFAB protocol says VAR intervenes only for clear and obvious errors, a human subjective standard. The technology provides absolute binary data, millimeter-precise offside lines, frame-by-frame freeze frames, binary, yes or no. You cannot apply a subjective human threshold to binary technical data without producing exactly what we have. 90-second delays, players celebrating goals that are then ruled out by a centimeter margin visible only to a camera positioned 50 meters above the pitch, fans in stadiums with no idea what is happening, and an atmosphere that dies every time the screen shows VAR check. The hardware is extraordinary. The protocol was never designed for what the hardware can actually measure. And for 2026, FIFA wants to expand VAR coverage to corner kicks and second yellow cards. More coverage of the system that is breaking the product. FIFA Plus, FIFA's streaming platform, their long-term direct-to-consumer play, has known security vulnerabilities documented by investigative outlet Play the Game. Illegal betting operators exploit CDN weaknesses to hijack live streams globally. The platform built to fight match fixing and corruption in football is being actively exploited by illegal gambling syndicates. Through gaps in FIFA's own code, an organization generating $13 billion that cannot secure its own stream. This is the most obscure fact in this entire video, and it might be the most important. FIFA does not write the laws of the game. The rules of football, offside, handball, red cards, throw-ins, every rule the world plays by, are written and maintained by IFAB, the International Football Association Board. IFAB has 8 votes. 4 belong to FIFA. 4 belong to the 4 British home associations: England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. To change any rule of football, you need 6 of 8 votes, which means FIFA, the most powerful sports governing body on earth, cannot unilaterally change a single rule of football without the agreement of at least 2 British football associations. The most powerful sports organization in history needs permission from Scotland to amend an offside rule. And Scotland knows it. The FA knows it. This is part of why the fight between FIFA and the English FA is the most important governance battle in football right now. April 2, 2026. The English Football Association publishes its 2024-25 annual report. Measured language. The language of an institution that has been in existence since 1863 and knows how to choose its words carefully. But the message is not measured at all. The FA explicitly states, in its own official document, that FIFA's expanded global competitions have the potential to significantly reduce the downtime available to elite players, affecting their recovery and overall well-being. That FIFA's expansions risk devaluing traditional domestic tournaments, such as the FA Cup. That increased fixture congestion may affect the performance of our national teams due to increased player fatigue and reduced time for international squad training. This is not an oversight. This is the oldest football association in the world, warning that FIFA's decisions are damaging English football at every level. The context: FIFA has expanded the World Cup to 48 teams and 104 matches, launched a 32-team Club World Cup in summer 2025, is planning to expand the Club World Cup to 48 teams by 2029, plans a Women's Club World Cup, continues adding international match windows. Elite players in 2025 were regularly playing 70 or more games in a single season. The human body, even the most conditioned, professionally managed athlete's body, has limits. Pep Guardiola told journalists, "Players are not machines." FIFPro, representing more than 65,000 professional footballers worldwide, filed an antitrust complaint with the EU Commission, accusing FIFA of calendar abuse. FIFA's response: in November 2025, they invited only selected player unions to a forum in Rabat. FIFPro was excluded. The 2025 Club World Cup solidarity payments. FIFA promised $185 million to clubs that were not selected. 7 months later, undelivered. FIFA, the organization that pre-booked $5.2 billion in broadcast revenue, could not or would not deliver promised payments to clubs within 7 months. Lesson 1. Own the permission layer, not the product. FIFA doesn't make football. It owns the right to stage the pinnacle of it. The most profitable position in any ecosystem is controlling access to the market. FIFA owns the World Cup stage, and every nation on earth pays the toll. Lesson 2. Misunderstanding your own value proposition is the most expensive mistake in business. FIFA assumed the name was the product. EA proved the product was everything underneath the name. For FIFA, the answer cost them $600 million per cycle. Lesson 3. Patronage systems are effective until they become visible, and then they are catastrophic. The FIFA Forward program was a masterclass in institutional vote buying. Financial dependency creates political loyalty. It works until enough independent voices document the mechanism publicly. Lesson 4. Your labor force is your product. Treat it that way. FIFA generates $13 billion by selling content produced by human beings. When the stars arrive injured and broken to a World Cup, the premium product degrades, and so does the premium price. Lesson 5. A monopoly built on something people love is the most resilient business structure ever created, and the most dangerous to abuse, because 5 billion people love football, and they love it despite FIFA, not because of it. That distinction between despite and because of is the crack in the foundation. A crack that Standard Oil had, that AT&T had, that Enron had. None of them thought the crack would ever reach the foundation. I want to show you something. That child playing football in the dust, she doesn't know who Gianni Infantino is. She doesn't know what IFRS 15 means. She doesn't know what a contract liability is, or what kafala is, or what a right-to-buy token costs. She just knows that when her foot connects with the ball in exactly the right way, something happens that cannot be put into words. something that might be the purest form of joy available to a human body. FIFA did not create that. That existed before FIFA was born, and it will exist after whatever comes next. 1.5 billion people watched Lionel Messi win the World Cup, and the joy was real. The tears were real. The moment was real. And 6,500 people died building the stage it was played on, and FIFA made 7 billion and paid the families nothing. Both things are true. Both things exist simultaneously, and that is the most uncomfortable sentence in this entire documentary, because it means the joy is real, and so is the cost. And most of the time, the cost is paid by people who will never be asked whether it was worth it. That is not a FIFA problem. That is the central question of the 21st century. Who gets the beautiful thing, and who pays for it? FIFA is not an anomaly. FIFA is a mirror. It reflects back at us the world we have built, one in which the most popular product in human history is governed by an institution that answers to no one, taxes no one, and is accountable to nothing except the 4-year calendar of its own enrichment. And billions of people watch anyway, not because they don't know, but because the game itself, the actual game, transcends the institution controlling it. The beautiful game deserves a beautiful institution. It doesn't have one yet. But the players are filing legal actions. The FA is publishing reports. The academics are writing open letters. The fans are getting louder. Maybe, just maybe, this is the cycle where the game starts to take itself back.